Good evening and welcome to the Palau Sant Jordi for the 2017 Superprestigio Dirt Track, the 5th edition of the international flat track competition that was reinitiated back in 2014. Two previous winners, Mark Marquez and Brad Baker, each have 2 titles to their name, but both have withdrawn from the entry list in the weeks leading up to this event, meaning we're guaranteed a new winner tonight. A crowd of 4,000 fans are in attendance despite those withdrawals, ready to witness some star names of the road racing scene challenge for the Superprestigio title, and stars of the international flat track community competing in the open category before the super final over multidisciplinary bragging rights. It's a packed programme of short track style sprint races guaranteed to be hard fought right from the start under the roof here in Barcelona. Building up to the opening round of races here in the Palau Sant Jordi, let's take an opportunity to look at the meeting format. It's a knockout competition, starting with the qualifying heat stages. Each rider has been assigned a qualifying group. Effectively, it's a round-robin stage, 2 heats in each group, and the top 2 performers in terms of total points will move on, automatic transfer to the grand final in their class. The riders who don't make it through will move to a last chance repechage, but only the top performer in that last chance race will also transfer through to the grand final. So the ideal is to make it through from the qualifying heats. The final itself will be split into 3 races, the third of which will count for bonus points as well, and the top performer obviously will win in their category, but the top performers will also march on to a combined race, the top riders from the Superprestigio and open categories meeting for a 25th and final race to determine the overall winner at the 2017 Superprestigio. So we get underway with Group A, the first heat for these riders in Group A. Lining up across the gate, it's Tony Elias off the inside on the number 24, the number 16, Greg Black of Great Britain alongside him, Carmelo Morales of Spain off gate 3, Alessandro Del Bianco of Italy off 4, David Checa of Spain off 5, Ruben Zaus of Spain off 6, and Tom Booth Amos of Great Britain off the outside starting position. Tony Elias was the top qualifier in the Superprestigio class, has the favourable inside start position as a result, and he will look to take advantage in the run down to turn number 1 in this, the opening race of the day in the 2017 Superprestigio. Long wait for the riders, but the gate drops, only Elias's starting position doesn't, and he is left adrift as the rest of the pack make their way into the first turn. A fall for the number 16, Greg Black, and caught up in it are both Ruben Zaus and also David Checa, so the front 4 have burst away in this 7-rider field. We continue under yellow flags, and Tony Elias has taken the opportunity to move through into second position and now mounting an assault for the race lead. At the moment it's the number 31, Carmelo Morales, who leads it, although not for much longer because Elias has cut through nicely on the inside coming off turn 4. So it's Elias who's hit the front, Carmelo Morales in second place, Tom Booth Amos in third, Alessandro Del Bianco in fourth, and the rest scrabbling for the minor places and the minor points. It's 10 points awarded to each race winner, and then the rest of the pack all scoring as well, 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3. But the vast majority of the points scored in the top positions, and consistency over the 2 races is what will determine who moves through. It's 6 laps during these qualification heat stages, and heading towards the checkered flag is Tony Elias in heat number 1, so he will be the early leader in Group A. White flag, we're into the final lap, and in fact Elias already marching well clear. The closest battle is over second position, Carmelo Morales now and Tom Booth Amos, who will try and move coming off the final turn but isn't quite close enough. Morales holds on for the 8 race points, then it's Booth Amos for 6, Alessandro Del Bianco for 5, a long wait for the riders in the lower order of the field, David Checa eventually coming over the line in 6th position ahead of Greg Black. So the result of that one, Tony Elias picking up 10, Carmelo Morales 8, Tom Booth Amos 6, Alessandro Del Bianco 5, Ruben Zaus 4, David Checa 3, and Greg Black 2. A full second's advantage for Tony Elias out in front, which over 6 laps is pretty impressive. We've seen the timings were excruciatingly close during the qualification to determine grid positions for these qualification heats. and we expect it to be as tight all the way through the event. We now move on to Group B, the opening race in Group B for the Superprestigio category. It's Marcos Ramirez off the inside, Xavi Verge off gate 2, Lucas Mayas off gate 3, Xavier Simeon off gate 4, Jesco Raffin off 5, Remy Gardner off 6, and Vincent Philippe off the very outside starting position. 7 riders in each of these Superprestigio races. Initially we were due to have one race of 8, but that isn't the way things have panned out, and as I said, it's only the top 2 performers in terms of total points from each group who will make direct transfer through to the grand final. Elias starting well then with victory in heat number 1, who will take the second race win of the day in this one, heat number 2. This is the opening race of Group B. Gate drops and it's a pretty level break. Mayas showing well, but it is the number 42, Marcos Ramirez, who takes the whole shot, bumps Mayas wide, and the pair have slipped into second and third positions. That's Lucas Mayas in third place and second place with Marcos Ramirez. Leading at the end of the opening lap then, it's Xavi Verge. Side-by-side action further down the field. That's a move for fourth position. Xavier Simeon dicing here with Remy Gardner, and in fact surging forward then off turn number 4. Xavier Simeon's managed to pass Lucas Mayas, and bundling past as well is Remy Gardner. So 2 moves for the price of 1 there. Mayas hasn't quite given up on recovering the position against Remy Gardner, although Gardner managed to break a little bit clear there coming off turn number 4. This is the battle at the moment for fourth position, held by Remy Gardner of Australia. Lucas Mayas of France directly behind him, gets the inside line coming off turn 4 and powers back past. So recovering fourth place, Lucas Mayas, the 2017 FIM Supersport World Champion, heading towards that fourth position. White flag, 1 lap remaining, still the battle is over fourth. Xavi Verge has broken well clear. Marcos Ramirez, after that early fight for the lead, is holding a good second position and well clear of Xavier Simeon. Race to the line for fourth position. Mayas a little bit unsettled and unsteady on that final turn, but holds on ahead of Remy Gardner, who takes 5th. Jesco Raffin and Vincent Philippe occupying the minor positions. Verge picking up the 10 points, then a second clear of Ramirez in second, 2 seconds covering the top 3, and then a closer fight for 4th, 5th and 6th positions, with Vincent Philippe tailed off out at the back. 2 points his score from that one. Heat number 1 in Group B. Third race of the day moves us on to Group C. Alberto Arenas off the inside start position here. Danny Ribalta off 2. Johan Zarco, fans' favourites, off gate 3. Xavier Pinsach off gate 4. Fabio Di Gianantonio off 5. And Fabio Quartararo off the outside. So Zarco is one of the riders that they've all come to watch, of course. The MotoGP star and former 2 times Moto2 world champion. Graduated to MotoGP in this 2017 campaign. He's wearing the number 5 plate and representing France. So watch out for him off that gate 3 position. Arenas and Ribalta on the inside of him. Once again, the riders will be waiting for the 5-second board to come out, and then the gate drops and we are underway. Zarco's made a poor start actually, all the way across from the outside. It's Quartararo who's made it, now trying to battle back Zarco, all the way down in 5th position as they head down the back straight. Not a good start for him. We've got a faller there on turn number 3. That's Pinsach of Spain, and Zarco has managed to move through into 4th position, but the closer race is up front where at the moment is the number 75 Albert Arenas, although he's muscled aside on the outside line on the top turn. Di Gianantonio comes through, and now Quartararo's come through as well. Arenas relegated to 3rd. He nips back up the inside coming off turn number 2. Great racing here for the top 3 positions. Behind them a bit of a gap to the rest of the pack, but Zarco is getting a smoother run while these 2 fight amongst themselves for 2nd and 3rd positions, and Johan Zarco trying to bring himself back into contention for a top 3 place. This is not going to be an ideal first ride for him, but we're more than halfway through this now. Race number 1 in Group C, and Johan Zarco down in 4th position, Ribalta in 5th, and of course we lost Pinsach to a fall in the early stages. He remounted but lost a great deal of time. It's at least a few seconds, of course, if you fall. The time it takes to remount is a bare minimum. We're into the closing lap now. Fabio Di Gianantonio, super stuff from him, managing to get the better of both Fabio Quartararo and Albert Arenas. 2 passes on his way to the checkered flag. Great ride from the Italian, just under half a second ahead of Alberto Arenas at the checkered flag. Fabio Quartararo in third, holding on by less than 0.2 of a second ahead of Johan Zarco, who takes fourth. Dani Ribalta and eventually Xavier Pinsach some 6 seconds behind the rest of the pack after his fall in the early stages, completing the finishers in race 1 of Group C. The action continuing to flow thick and fast as we move on to the open category and Group A of these riders. Heat number 1 of 2 for them, including 2 of the Great Britain's DTRA regulars. Off the inside start position, it's the number 98 Richard Mason, Jaume Gaia of Spain alongside. Pre-event favourites include Briar Baumann and Fran Cardus. Baumann all the way over from the USA and Cardus the reigning Spanish champion. Masatoshi Omori of Japan off gate 5, Tom Neve off gate 6, Francesco Cecchini off 7 and Guillermo Cano off the outside starting position. Francesco Cecchini seemingly suffering some last-minute dramas with that number 10 machine, and race direction are certainly trying to get into the mix as well, but at the moment it is Cecchini, the Italian, who is holding up the start of this race, and if he doesn't get himself going quickly enough, we will get going with only 7 riders instead of 8. We certainly have a tighter grid, closer packed grid with 8 riders rather than 7, and that should give us a real tight affair running down into the first turn. Cecchini is told to move back. It looks as though he has exceeded the starting time allowance and will be out of contention for the start of this race, and Guillermo Cano takes advantage to move over and across to gate number 7. So a revised lineup without Francesco Cecchini. Disappointment for the Italian, who will be a non-scorer in his opening ride. That's going to make his evening much more difficult than it would otherwise have been. So it's 7 riders then as we finally get going with race number 1 in the open category. Group A preparing to see the gate drop for the first time. We are underway after a long hold. Tom Neve has missed it. Instead, it's the number 70 who gets there first, Omori of Japan, and we've got a faller, and it's the number 14, Briar Baumann, who's gone down, just connected with the pack as he went into turn 1, remounting very, very swiftly. At the back of the group, at the tail of the train at the moment, is Tom Neve trying to find a way through from 6th position. Richard Mason under some pressure here coming off turn 2. He's going to get bumped aside. That's Guillermo Cano moving up and through the field. So he's moving through, as is Jaume Gaia. Gaia making a big lunge, passes Mason, passes Neve as well. Neve now may lose another position to Briar Baumann. There's loads going on further down the order, but up front it's Fran Cardus pulling away with Omori of Japan. Neve now loses that position to Briar Baumann, so he is continuing to make progress, the American, despite falling on the first turn. It's been an absolutely incredible recovery, and he's made another position there. Jaume Gaia just a little bit unsteady coming off turn number 4, and he's been passed by 2. Tom Neve has come through as well. Neve now 2 positions clear of Richard Mason, so Tom Neve is up to P5. Briar Baumann at the moment sitting directly ahead of him in 4th position, but he's closing in on Guillermo Cano, who sits in 3rd. Cano runs wide off turn 2. Baumann's going to lunge from way back and moves Cano aside. Is Neve close enough to capitalise? Not quite, and Tom Neve comes over the line in 5th position. So it's a race victory for Fran Cardus, and the Spaniard takes the 10 points. Omori in 2nd of Japan, just half a second back, but the closer fight was further down the order. Briar Baumann with a bold last lap move to come through for the 6 points ahead of Cano of Spain, who takes 4th, and Tom Neve in 5th position. But the positions were oscillating quite dramatically there. An incredible recovery from Briar Baumann to come back. He penalised himself with a fall on the first turn, remounted and fought his way back from 7th to 3rd position. A very impressive ride there from the American. Now on to Group B, Heat 1 for these riders. Spanish National Championship runner-up Gerard Bailo lining up in this one, as is Oliver Brindley, the British hopeful, right in the middle of the pack, and JD Beach, one of those 2 American invited riders, will be among the favourites. Lorenzato, Delestre, Garin, Bailo, Brindley, Beach, Gabellini and Capdevila for this one. Race number 1 in Group B. The riders are under starters' orders. Less than 5 seconds until the gate drops. Watch for Brindley in the middle of the pack to see how he can get on. He's muscled aside and he gets hooked up between JD Beach and Gerard Bailo. Another couple of the favourites. We've got a faller once again, another first turn faller. This time it's the Argentinian Lorenzato. JD Beach got moved aside. He's now fought his way back through into 4th position. In fact, He's managed to take down Capdevila in so doing as well, so the Spaniard dropping to the back as JD Beach comes through for 4th position. Oliver Brindley up in 3rd, trying to pressurise for 2nd place, but the race leader is pulling away now. Gerard Bailo it is who leads it. Adrian Garin of Spain in 2nd. Oliver Brindley closing in on him from 3rd place. Can he find a way through though, up into the top 2 positions? At the moment the answer is no, and the Spaniards are locking out the top 2 places quite nicely. JD Beach starting to close from 4th position, but I'm not sure he's closing quickly enough to move himself into a top 3 place. Brindley seizes an opportunity. Garin ran wide there off turn number 4, and Brindley takes his left leg away as he's forceful back into turn number 1, and JD Beach capitalises to move through down the back straight and block out Garin. Beach is going to try and move on Brindley. He's only got a lap to do it. Brindley in turn attempting to close in on Gerard Bailo, but Bailo has pulled clear and in fact is starting to come up towards lap traffic in the latter stages in just 6 laps. Bailo takes the checkered flag, Brindley over the line in 2nd, JD Beach in 3rd and Adrian Garin in 4th. Well, it wouldn't surprise me if we see any of those 4 heading through to the latter stage of this competition, because they all look frightfully fast there and almost 6 seconds up on their nearest rival behind. Lorenzo Gabellini taking 5th position, Matthias Lorenzato getting back up after falling in the early stages, Wilfred de Lestre of France in 7th, and Capdevila after that early fall and coming together with JD Beach, it must be said, ending up in last position. But a great start for the Spaniards here today, and a bit of a surprise to see the 2 Americans only manage 3rd position finishes in their opening outings. Gerard Bailo, a good winner there ahead of Oliver Brindley and JD Beach. Next up is Group C, the opening race for these riders. Frank Serra goes off the inside start position. Will he be able to continue the Spanish trend of victors? Thomas Charret of France off gate 2, Jaume Gaia, Sergi Sanchez, Sylvain Bidard, Michael Dijkstra, and finally Toby Hales completing the lineup. Another 7 rider start for the 3rd race of the day in the open category, heat number 6. Riders waiting to be called to order then with the 15-second and then the 5-second board, and we should be getting underway. Indeed, the gate drops. It's a decent start from the number 4, Thomas Charret, and it is Charret who gets the whole shot. He moves up the pack. Sergi Sanchez in the middle. Toby Hales was stuck on the outside of 3 running into turn 2. He's now dropped back into 6th position, trying around the outside line of the top turn. He's got to be careful not to get pushed further back. Jaume Gaia comes through on Charret, who's got it all wrong around turns 1 and 2 and drops actually from 2nd all the way back down now to 5th position, trying to recover around the outside line. Toby Hales sits in 6th place ahead of Michael Dijkstra of the Netherlands, as running wide again Charret on turns 1 and 2. Hales not quite close enough to capitalise. Battle on for 3rd, 4th and 5th positions, in particularly 4th and 5th. Sylvain Bidard and Thomas Charret, the 2 Frenchmen going at it for P4. It's Serra and Gaia, the Spaniards, leading the way. Sergi Sanchez, a bit of an isolated 3rd position at the moment. 4th looks like the most likely position change in the closing stages here. Bidard, though, hasn't put a foot wrong so far, and Charret was wayward on the opening laps, ending up dropping back, and it doesn't look as though he's going to be presented with a second chance. White flag and final lap. Frank Serra leading quite nicely. Jaume Gaia having slipped gradually backwards, and Sergi Sanchez an identical distance back from Gaia in 3rd position. It's a Spanish lockout in the top 3 places in Group C after their opening race. Frank Serra wins it ahead of Jaume Gaia in 2nd and Sergi Sanchez in 3rd. Thomas Charret sat in the top positions early on, but got muscled aside and then got it wrong later on, dropping down to 5th position. His fellow countryman Sylvain Bidard taking advantage and moving 4th. Toby Hales and Michael Dijkstra completing the finishers in race number 1 with Group C. As you can see, the riders lining straight back up for the next race, the 7th race of the day, and we continue with the Superprestigio class, recovering these riders from Group A. At the moment, the leader is Tony Elias ahead of Carmelo Morales, 10 and 8 points respectively. They sit in the provisional qualification positions, but the gate positions are all shaken up now for the 2nd round of races. Tony Elias then to watch off gate number 2 with Greg Black directly on the inside of him. Morales and Del Bianco 3 and 4. Checker, Zaus and Booth Amos completing the lineup for race number 2 in Group A. Nothing as yet decided, with half of the points still available. Not a good start, in fact, from Elias, who's trapped out at the back. Collision on the first 2 turns, as Greg Black gets together with Ruben Zauz, and both of them have been penalised. Elias is up into third place on the inside line coming off the top turn. Dropping back into fourth position is Tom Booth-Amos. They're going right at it in the lower order, and Greg Black has been brought down. David Checker lunging for the inside into turn number 1 from a distance back and just collecting the side of Black, who's gone down. The race now is over second position behind Carmelo Morales, the race leader. Alessandro Del Bianco going at it with Tony Elias over P2, but as things stand, this would be enough for both Tony Elias and Carmelo Morales to march on, and despite recording a second position, Alessandro Del Bianco would have to wait on his potential results in the last chance qualifier. Elias trying to make the pain even worse, but this is a pass he doesn't really need. He might not be able to do those mathematical calculations whilst on board the machine and flying through the turns that approach the riders in quick succession on the short straights here in the Palau San Jordi. Del Bianco gets it a bit wrong there into turn number 1. Elias as close as he's been all race. I'm not sure he's going to get there though, because Del Bianco has done a great job of covering that white line and holds on for second place. Morales wins it then. Del Bianco over the line in second, Elias in third, Tom Booth-Amos in fourth position, Zauz, Checker, and eventually Greg Black coming over the line, but Black was brought down and ends up classified in 7th position. So in terms of the results of that one and where that leaves us in total, the race winner first time out, Tony Elias, adding 6 points there, moves on to 16. Carmelo Morales, the most consistent of the Group A riders, picked up second first time out and a win second time around, and those are the two riders who march on well clear in the end, 3 points clear of Alessandro Del Bianco, who managed second place last time out in race 2. So we now move on with Group B and the second race for these riders. First time out it was Xavi Verge who managed the 10 race points ahead of Marcos Ramirez and Xavier Simeon. Lucas Mayas, remember, being relegated down to 4th position. So let's see what he can do here. Second time of asking off gate number 4. Simeon, who scored 6 points first time out, has the inside gate. That could be an advantage as he takes the pole line in the run down to the first turn. The outside start position with Vincent Philippe, who finished at the back in his opening ride. It'll be tough to recover from low scoring as we get underway with race number 2, and it's the 42, Marcos Ramirez, who's made the start. Runner-up first time out in this group. He's run across the turn though, and a good move back down the inside from Lucas Mayas, who moves into third and will now take second off Ramirez, who's dropping alarmingly back. And Ramirez, who did so well in his opening ride, is right into 6th position, right down towards the back of the pack now, trying to recover down the inside line. He can't quite do so for the moment. Remy Gardner at the moment in P4. No, that's Vierge in P4 with Remy Gardner in P3 directly up ahead of him. And this is really going to shake up the point standings as things are at the moment. Jesco Raffin just being overhauled there by Vincent Philippe, although he's trying to get back at him now on the inside line. That's the battle for 6th position. Neither of these two riders are marching on, and in terms of pace, you can see that they're dropping back as well quite dramatically from the top 5. 2 laps still remaining, and Marcos Ramirez continuing his recovery through the field, and we've got a hook-up between the riders who were in 3rd and 4th positions, and it's the 97, Xavi Vierge, who misses out. He's going to drop behind both Ramirez and Raffin as they head into the final lap. So Marcos Ramirez recovering through into 4th position. He came back from 7th. We'd already seen him pass Philippe and Raffin to move up into 5th place, and in the end he's going to take a good 4th position, but I don't think that's quite going to be enough. Xavier Simeon taking the checkered flag in that one, banks the 10 race points. He scored 6 first time out, so that moves him on to 16. Xavi Vierge was directly behind Marcos Ramirez after that coming together in the latter stages of the race with Remy Gardner, and therefore takes the 4 points from race number 2 and moves on to 14. He will qualify alongside Simeon and 1 point ahead of Mayas and Ramirez. So it couldn't have got much closer than that in Group B. What has Group C got in store for us now? Heat 2 for these riders. Winner first time out was Fabio Di Gianantonio in quite sensational style, ahead of Albert Arenas. So those are the two riders who currently sit inside the provisional qualification positions. Johan Zarco has ground to make up. He goes off gate 4 here. 5 points scored by him in his opening ride. and we'll see if he can try and do better than that this time around. The pole line is with Xavier Pinsac, who was the lowest scorer of the 6 riders, scored 3 points in his opening ride after coming down in the early stages. Last minute dramas here for Johan Zarco, raises his right hand, struggling with the machine not started, and well, the countdown is underway, so if Zarco doesn't get the machine started in time, he's going to lose out here, and the rest of the pack gets underway without Johan Zarco, one of the pre-event favourites, and the 5 have made it down to turn number 1. It's the number 15 of Danny Ribalta who makes the fastest start, but he ran wide off turn 2, and Alberto Arenas was poised to pounce and cuts through, and having finished in second place first time out, another top 2 finish here would see Alberto Arenas through. He's the current race leader. Ribalta up into second position, diving for the inside line further back. It's Fabio Di Gianantonio. Well executed move, and that is for 4th position on Fabio Quartararo, who drops back down into 5th position. Johan Zarco in 6th, of course, having got running, but too much ground to make up surely for him to pick up any decent points totals, and he's not going to make it through automatically. Of course, he will get a second opportunity in the last chance qualifier, but no rider really wants to go through there. 8 riders with only 1 making it through to the final. We're into the latter stages now. Arenas has managed this race perfectly after that overtake on Danny Ribalta coming off the second turn on the opening lap. Pinsac with an improved ride, but he had too many points to make up after a mere 3-point score first time out. And the surprise of this one is Fabio Di Gianantonio down in 4th position, but by my reckoning this should be enough for him to qualify nonetheless, thanks to his race victory first time out. Arenas takes it then and banks the 10 race points. He's safely through, a win and a second place. Second over the line, Danny Ribalta, he scores 8, but he'd only scored 4 in his opening ride, so he moves on to 12. Pinsac was out of the running after a 3-point score first time out, and Fabio Di Gianantonio will be the second qualifier from this Group C. Arenas moving through on 18, Di Gianantonio on 15. Danny Ribalta, despite a second place there, misses out by 3 points on 12. Quartararo in 4th position, Pinsac and particularly Zarco each having finished with 1 last place. Well, they failed to move through and will have to try their luck come the last chance qualifiers. Now we're moving back to the open category, and Group A, the point standings in this one seeing Francar just leading the way ahead of Matasoshi Omori. So those are the 2 riders who occupy the provisional qualification positions coming into this one. Once again, we're marching on with the action at an extreme rate of alacrity. It's Jaume Gaia off the inside start position, only 3 points first time out, realistically out of the running, alongside Brian Baumann off gate 2. He's got some work to do here, finished 3rd, a good recovery after falling in the early stages. Francar just winner first time out, goes off 3, then it's Omori, Neve, Cecchini, good to see him back up to the line after problems at the start last time out. Guillermo Cano and Richard Mason completing the lineup off the very, very outside. Finally, it looks as though we're ready to go. A couple of riders with last-minute dramas, and the pace has been absolutely breakneck of this event so far, and I suspect that the organisers will want to slow things down ever so slightly. Otherwise, we're all going to be home and in time for a little evening meal before hitting the sack. Here we go then for race number 2 in Group A of the open category. Omori snaking as they run down to the first turn. It's the 2-1-3 on the inside. Jaume Gaia, 3 riders have connected. Cecchini in the wrong place at the wrong time once again ends up out at the back. Car just challenging on the inside of Neve, and Neve has collected the rider directly ahead of him and gone down. So Tom Neve with an absolute disaster there, because he was in a good point scoring position at the time, and he went for a move into turn 3 and simply slid into the rider directly ahead of him. At the moment, that's Jaume Gaia sitting directly ahead of Brian Baumann. This is for second position because Guillermo Cano has checked out in first position, and this would make the point scorings very close indeed as Baumann tries to make what you can only term as a bump pass. He makes contact, and it's a contact pass on turns 3 and 4 to come through for second place. Cano leads it then, Baumann in second, Guy in third, Richard Mason in fourth position. This is an improved ride from him after scoring 2 points first time out, and despite coming from the very outside, Francesco Cecchini was in the wrong place at the wrong time on the first 2 turns, and he was already out of the running for qualification, having failed to score first time out, failing to get off the line. And Tom Neve is going to fail to score in this one because he will be a non-finisher, having fallen in quite alarming fashion, thankfully back up to his feet. Cano is delighted with that race victory ahead of Brian Baumann. The wait for a first American race winner continues. Jaume Gaia takes third position as Tom Neve makes his way back now to pit lane to contemplate what might have been in the heat stages and think about how he's going to attack the last chance qualifier, because there's only one qualifier from each of those two last chance races. Cano wins it then. He marches on as the top scorer from Group A. Brian Baumann also qualifying for Ankar Dus, only scoring 2 points from that one after a win first time out, and I think that'll be the first time here today that we've seen a race winner fail to take automatic qualification. Cardus missing out then by just 2 points compared to Brian Baumann, more consistent over the two races. Group B now, and JD Beach is bidding for a qualification position. He has the pole. Alongside him, Adrian Garin, who scored 5 points last time out, sitting directly 1 point behind JD Beach. Alongside those two, it's Oliver Brindley off gate 3, 8 points from his opening ride. Gate 4 with Gerard Bailo, the winner first time out in this Group B. Alongside them then, off the outside start positions, we've got on gate number 5, Lorenzo Gabellini. Gate 6, the number 55, Wilfred de Lestre of France. Gate number 7 is Matthias Lorenzato, who fell, remember, in his opening ride, and Capdevila, who was another faller in the opening round, off the outside. So the three riders who realistically look out of contention: Lorenzato on 3, de Lestre on 2, and Capdevila on 1. But Gabellini still in contention on 4, and then you've got your top 4 performers, Bailo, Brindley, Beach and Garin. Those are the 4 in particular to watch here. I did say that we'd rushed through at breakneck pace, and we're now ahead of schedule, and we're bringing ourselves back into line by the looks of it, by keeping the riders for some time at the start line, and that's only building up the tension here as we wait to find out whether either Gerard Bailo or Oliver Brindley will be able to maintain their provisional qualification positions. We've got 3 riders in this race who've raced with the DTRA in the UK Flat Track Nationals in 2017. Oliver Brindley, of course, who was a wildcard in the early stages of the season before going over to the USA to complete the bulk of his 2017 programme, and that fits in with his career targets in the AMA Nationals. Gerard Bailo, who came over as a mid-season wildcard to do a few different types of circuits in the UK, and flat track scene in Europe ever growing. Great to see a really strong looking lineup for this open category here today, but can any of the Europeans get the better of the American? Off the inside start position, JD Beach, he was beaten and relegated down to 3rd place in race number 1 in this Group B. This is race number 2. The points combined to decide 2 qualifiers, remember. Direct transfer spots to the grand final in this, the open category of the 2017 Superprestigio Dirt Track. Finally, they're under starters' orders and waiting for the gate to drop. Brindley off 3, has a couple of the favourites directly on the inside of him. He didn't make a particularly good start first time out, and he's not made a particularly good start this time either. Wilfred de Lestre takes the whole shot, but he went way too deep. Excess enthusiasm into turns 1 and 2, and he went to the back in the mid-pack. That's Gerard Bailo. The winner first time out is only in 4th position as Oliver Brindley comes through on the inside line of Lorenzato to move up into 2nd place, and Bailo is hoping to try and follow those 2 through, because at the moment it's JD Beach sitting out in front. He would move on to 16. Oliver Brindley would move on to 16 as well. Gerard Bailo needs an extra place here because 5 points for 4th position would only move him on to 15, and the top 2 in this race would also be the top 2 in the overall standings. Bailo then under pressure. We're also under yellow flags for a faller in the lower order of the field. I think that's Lorenzo Gabellini, who is out of contention, having successfully completed the first 2 laps. So Gabellini down on turns 1 and 2, but the focus is on this battle, firstly for the top 2 positions, and secondly for 3rd and 4th. Oliver Brindley has started to gain in some ground on JD Beach here. He doesn't need this overtaking manoeuvre because 2nd place will be enough. We could have a 3-way tie for 16 points if Bailo manages to make the pass in the latter stages on Lorenzato, but I don't think he's going to get there, and it's Beach and Brindley in the first 2 positions who qualify, and Gerard Bailo will miss out by just a point in one of the closest fought groups so far. Group B in the open category, it's Beach and Brindley who march on, finishing in the top 2 positions there, and having finished 2nd and 3rd first time out, they total 16, and Gerard Bailo, who finishes in 4th in that one, totals 15. A bit of a gap then to the rest of the pack. Lorenzato with an improved ride there, and Garin both finishing on 9 points apiece, and the riders in the lower order first time out were once again the stragglers in race number 2 in Group B. So this is the last of the qualifying heats lining up now. Group C in this open category, heat number 2 for these riders. Winner first time out was Frank Serra. He lines up off gate 2 on the number 18 machine here, the Spaniard. Finishing in second and third positions were fellow countrymen Jaume Gaia and Sergi Sanchez of Spain. So those are the top 3 at the moment. Then we have the 2 Frenchmen, Sylvain Bidard and Thomas Charret, and finally Toby Hales and Michael Dijkstra, the 2 UK flat track nationals regulars, the DTRA riders who finished in the minor placings first time out 6th and 7th positions respectively, and they now have a lot of work to do, not least because they have the outside start positions. Thomas Charret will be blessing his good fortune. He's got the inside start position, although that hasn't always worked. We've seen riders make good starts from the inside and then disappear off the stratosphere coming off turn number 2 and end up freight trained by a huge pack of riders all diving past. So if Charret does make the start, he needs to try and back it up early to remain around the pole line and hold on coming off turn 2, because it's all well and good getting the whole shot and being first to turn 1, but as we saw with Wilfred de Lestre last time out, if you make the start and then disappear off wide off turn 2 and end up at the back, it's the positions into turn 3 that matter a great deal more than the positions into turn number 1. And we have seen a couple of riders strategically hanging back in the run down to the first turn and then nipping up the inside coming off turn 2. Toby Hales could probably do with doing exactly that, because he made a good start in the first running but ended up getting stranded high and wide. He goes off gate number 7, the very outside in race number 2 here in Group C. So it's Charret off 1, Serra off 2, Gaia off 3, Sanchez 4, Bidard 5, Dijkstra 6, and Toby Hales completing the lineup, the lone Brit in this lineup, off the outside starting position. Race number 2 here in Group C with 2 qualification positions on the line. The 5-second board is withdrawn and the gate drops. Charret, a little bit of a snaking start, and it's the number 64 of Bidard who's got there first in the first turn. Hales had made a decent jump but got ran wide by the number 18 coming off turn 2, and it's Frank Serra who's managed to move through now into second place, and dropping backwards through the field it's Bidard who's now under pressure from Sergi Sanchez over 4th position. Behind those 2 it's Toby Hales who sits in 6th and Michael Dijkstra at the back, so the 2 riders from the 2 outside start positions have ended up in the minor placings once again. But Thomas Charret has had a much improved ride so far here, and he has managed to hit the front in the absolute melee around turns 1 and 2, and I did say that Charret might do better hanging back than just lunging for the inside into turn number 1, and he did so well. He managed to cut back. His fellow countryman Bidard made the start, dived across coming out of turn number 2 and ran wide, and he was then passed. Serra moving up into second place, Jaume Gaia into third. Those 2 riders are both going to pick up decent points hauls here, and it remains to get the abacus out to do the calculations in this group. I would certainly say that Frank Serra will be moving through. He's comfortable now in second position ahead of Jaume Gaia, and he and Thomas Charret are both going to finish on good points totals as they come around turns 3 and 4 for the final time. Frank Serra will move through then. A race winner first time out gets second in his second ride to move on to 18. Thomas Charret with the race victory will move on to 14, and Jaume Gaia also moving on to 14, but Charret has the race win, so he will progress on countback, and Jaume Gaia, despite finishing second and third, will have to go it again in the last chance qualifier. Bidard despite making the start, Sanchez despite finishing in third position first time out. Those 2 will also have to go to the elimination races, and Toby Hales and Michael Dijkstra in the minor placings both in race 1 and race 2 in Group C. Well, what a great event this has been so far here under the roof of the Palau Sant, Jordi, the 2017 Superprestigio dirt track, and we're already putting the riders into position for the first LCQ. Only 1 rider can make it through to the grand final, and this is the first of 2 last chance qualifiers in the Superprestigio category. We've got Alessandro Del Bianco off the inside start position, Lucas Mayas off gate 2, Tom Booth Amos off gate 3, Ruben Zaus off 4, Remy Gardner off 5, David Checker off 6, Greg Black off 7, and Vincent Philippe off the very outside. The Frenchman has been struggling for pace so far. So these are the lesser lights of the qualifying heats, if you like, the riders who didn't make it through from their respective groups and are now dropped into a shootout with only one rider progressing in the competition. The rest will be eliminated, and positions 2 to 5 in this last chance qualifier will go to what is called the challenge race, which is ultimately the consi for the riders to determine positions 9 to 16. So that's the consolation challenge, which is still to come here tonight. But the main focus is on making it through to the grand final, so I suspect that this is going to be brutal. As repechage races go, 8 riders lining up, 1 making it out successfully. Making a start and trying to break clear, I would suggest, is going to be the key strategy for this one. Well, we've got through to the end of the 12 qualifying heats extremely quickly. There is going to be a short break after the last chance qualifier races before we get the challenge and the respective finals onto track. We've got plenty of racing still to come, because when we get to the finals, we move it up a notch from 6 laps that we see during the heats and the LCQs to 8 for the finals, and then 14 for the last final in each category. Well, it looks as though the riders are settled, and now we can get the 15-second board up and build up to the first last chance qualifier. This is going to be an absolute scrum in the run down to turn number 1. Only 1 rider transfers to the main event, the grand final, over 3 final races in this Superprestigio category of the 2017 edition. The riders building up then, less than 15 seconds remaining. They wait for the gate to drop and they'll run down towards the first turn. The gate drops, and who is going to be the first to show? It's Ruben Zaus on the inside line. David Checker's made a good one around the outside. We've got a faller and a rider hooked up with them on the run down to turn number 1, and that allows the rest of the pack to escape, and it particularly allows Ruben Zaus to escape. Through now down the inside for second position, it's Greg Black, but he's ended up losing the position he gained rather immediately, having moved David Checker out of the way. Checker goes down to 5th position, but Greg Black left a huge hole up the inside for Tom Booth-Amos. Is that to come through as well? The race continuing. It's, remember, over only 6 laps, so there's not really much of an opportunity for riders to try and make up ground, as Booth-Amos leaves a bit of a hole down the inside line. Greg Black not quite close enough to challenge for the moment, and on the tail of this group of 4 is Remy Gardner waiting for an opportunity. An opportunity might present itself here because the number 16 has moved through. Booth-Amos is pushed aside and pushed aside twice as he goes down to 4th position. He tries to recover 3rd down the inside into turn number 3. He hooks up with Remy Gardner. We're into the final lap now. It's the number 111 of Ruben Zaus who is heading towards the transfer spot. We might see a last bend lunge here from Greg Black down the inside. He does make the last bend lunge. He moves Zaus out of the way. Remy Gardner tries to make a move coming off turn 4, but he can't quite get there, and it's Greg Black after an extremely aggressive manoeuvre. Oh, we're going to have a bit of afters at the end of that one. The last chance qualifier, I did say it was going to be a melee, and so it proved, as we saw 2 riders coming together in the latter stages of that race. Greg Black knew that that was his only opportunity to overhaul Ruben Zaus. He went for a lunge down the inside into turn number 3, moved Zaus out of the way, and Remy Gardner came through for 2nd, but I can confirm that Greg Black has been disqualified from that last chance qualifier. So despite holding on for the race win, it's Remy Gardner who inherits the race win and inherits a place in the grand final. It couldn't get much closer than it was in the latter stages of that one, with 4 riders all in the mix, but in the end 1 rider of them marches through, and that is Remy Gardner, with Greg Black disqualified and Ruben Zaus pushed out of the way, having led from start to almost finish within sight of the checkered flag. He's moved aside and is eliminated in 2nd. Well, let's see if the second last chance qualifier is as frantic as the first as we continue in the Superprestigio category. Xavier Pinsach off the inside start position here. Danny Rabalta, his fellow countryman, fellow Spaniard, off gate 2. Marcos Ramirez off 3. Gate 4, Fabio Quartararo of France. The outside start positions, Jesko Raffin of Switzerland, and finally Johan Zarco off the very outside. Now, Johan Zarco has been one of the main riders in the build-up to this event, talking about a potential move for the Superprestigio to France for next season and how he would like to inherit the mantle of Marc Marquez. But at the moment, he's not even going to make it through to the final of the Superprestigio category, yet let alone try to take on the Americans in the open class. We had last-minute problems there for Pinsach of Spain off the inside start position, but those appear to be resolved, and now we can build up to the action with the second last chance qualifier in the Superprestigio class. So 6 riders from the road racing scene line up for the LCQ with only 1 space available in the grand final. Zarco hasn't made a particularly good one off the very outside, and it's Marcos Ramirez who gets there first. He leaves a bit of room up the inside though, coming off turn 2, and drops instead to second place. Zarco getting feisty up into third position, elbows Danny Ribalta out of the way and through into third place. Ribalta now under pressure, may drop to fourth, and from there surely he won't be able to recover. Raffin coming through down the inside, in fact for fourth position, but Ribalta manages to hold on. We've got a real duel going on out in front. It's Pinsach who now leads the way from Ramirez up in second position. Third place is with Johan Zarco. He's got a lot of work to make up ground to the top 2 because they've managed to break away a little bit up front. Pinsach is holding it as close to the curve as is possible, knowing that Ramirez is trying to find a way through on the inside, particularly coming off the turns. The pair bumped coming off turn 4 last lap around, but not so this time. Still the front wheel being shown continuously by Marcos Ramirez, waiting for an opportunity to come through. Again, he tries to put his front wheel in. White flag and final lap. Johan Zarco is going to be dumped out of the competition here in the Palau Sant Jordi, and the MotoGP star is set for elimination. Ramirez makes a last bend lunge. Down goes Pinsach. Ramirez is caught up in it. Zarco comes through. Johan Zarco will progress to the grand final, but by a hair's breadth coming off the final turn for the final time. Fortunately for him, being well back from the top 2 ended up working in his favour, because the 2 riders directly ahead of him connected and have ended up both being eliminated. Pinsach won't even make it through to the challenge race because he finished down in 6th position in that one, so he takes the 17th finishing position in this 5th edition of the Superprestigio and finds himself eliminated here tonight. Only 1 rider marching through, and by a 1/10 of a second, that rider is MotoGP regular Johan Zarco. Well, I must admit that I can't be too surprised about the fact that we've had 2 last chance qualifiers decided by bold last bend moves. Only 1 qualification position up for grabs, and that kind of format favours a last bend lunge, and we've seen 2 of them in the first 2 LCQs. Now we move on to the 3rd LCQ, this in the open category, the remaining 2 in the open category, and this one features the top 2 from this season's Spanish flat track nationals, and only 1 of them at the most can make it through to the grand final stage. It also features 2 of the DTRA regulars, Tom Neve, who goes off gate number 7, the number 68, and the number 98, Richard Mason, starting on the inside. Jaume Gaia alongside him. 3 and 4 for Cardus and Gerard Bailo, the top 2 from the Spanish nationals. Omori, the Japanese rider, off gate number 5. Gate 6, Lorenzato of Argentina. Tom Neve and Wilfred de Lestre completing the lineup. Of those 8 riders, only 1 will move on to secure a transfer spot to the grand final stage in the open category. The LCQ, the gate drops. It's a good start from the number 45. Lorenzato is there or thereabouts on the inside. De Lestre's made another good start. He's up with them. They're 3 abreast though into the top 10, and De Lestre loses out. Tom Neve well back down the pack. Bailo forcing Cardus out of the way to hold on to second position. Doesn't quite open up an opportunity for Gaia, who sits in 4th place. It's Richard Mason in 5th, ahead of Tom Neve in 6th. It's Neve who's trying to make progress. Cardus has pushed Bailo out of the way. Neve is going to gain 1 place here because Bailo has been sent sprawling all the way back down from 2nd position all the way down to 6th, and Neve is going to make another place here. He goes up to 4th with Richard Mason moved out of the way, and Gerard Bailo passes Mason as well. In fact, Mason has gone to the back to battle with Wilfred de Lestre, and the riders are now starting to get a little bit spread out. Frank Cardus sitting in 2nd place. The race leader is Matthias Lorenzato. He's closing in on a transfer spot to the grand final, the Argentinian, but he's seeing Frank Cardus close in, and we could be in for another grandstand finale as we head into the final lap. Cardus from way back bangs bars with the number 45, who's pushed aside, and Lorenzato dropping back as Neve makes a move down the inside. Good move for third position from Tom Neve, and an attempt to recover from Jaume Gaia is unfruitful off the final turn, and Tom Neve moves through to third position, but with only one qualifier, and Ferran Cardus pushing his way to the front there. Determination from the Spanish national champion. It is the number 1 plate holder who moves through. So from LCQ, it's Ferran Cardus who marches on. Lorenzato, Neve, Gaia and Bailo will all move through to the challenge race. Omori Delestra and Richard Mason are all eliminated here this evening. That's the last of them we will see in the Palau Sant Jordi in 2017. Now we move on to the second last chance qualifier in the open category. It's Adrian Garin off the inside start position, Jaume Gaia off gate 2, Sergi Sanchez off 3, Sylvain Bidard off 4, Marc Capdevila off 5, gate 6 is with Toby Hales, Michael Dijkstra and Francesco Cecchini completing the lineup for this one. We have 4 Spaniards. We saw 1 Spaniard progress from the first LCQ in the open category, who will progress from the second LCQ in the open category. You don't want to find yourself off the outside starting positions, and Francesco Cecchini, with a lot of bad luck, has ended up finding himself right off the very outside. Hales has made a competitive start. The fastest starter is Sergi Sanchez. He runs wide off turn 2, though. It's Garin who manages to claim the lead down the back straight. Sanchez relegated to third, might be pushed back further. Gaia, the number 13, challenging on the inside line. Second place is with the 64, Sylvain Bidard. He's within 1 place of a provisional qualification position. Locking up there, coming off turn number 2, it's Capdevila. All the battles further down the order at the moment are inconsequential in terms of the positions for qualification. In fact, we've seen a change of position for P5 now. Francesco Cecchini trying to fight back from further down the order, but at the moment the closest fight is over. Second, Sanchez makes a move down the inside of Bidard, almost takes his front wheel away entirely. That gives an opportunity to Gaia to try and challenge for P3, but he can't quite get there as Bidard manages to get back across the racing line. But while these two were scrapping it out over second and third positions, Adrian Garin of Spain has pulled well clear, and a rider who's been a regular in the FIM Flat Track Cup and the Dirt Track Cup here in Spain is heading into his final lap now and looking set for a place in the final. His fellow countryman Sergi Sanchez is the length of a straight behind, so we aren't going to see any last bend lunges. Garin qualifies through, Sanchez is eliminated, as are Bidard, Gaia, Cecchini, who eventually comes over the line in 5th, ahead of Michael Dijkstra, Capdevila and Toby Hales, who rounds out the finishers in the second LCQ in the open category. Garin marches on then to the final. Sanchez, Bidard, Gaia and Cecchini through to the challenge. Dijkstra, Capdevila and Hales taking no further part here tonight. So the completion of our 4th last chance qualifier means we now know the identities of the riders who will be competing in the final in both Superprestigio and Open categories. A reminder of the format: we now have 3 final races in each class, each with their own podium to be determined by total points across the 3 races. There are extra bonus points to be awarded in the 3rd final, so we will see a gradual increase in pressure and tension as we get to the latter stages of the event. But it's the total of the 3 races combined that is critical, so winning the 3rd final alone will not be enough. Consistency is key here. The first of the 3 finals in the Superprestigio class is now lining up. Off the inside gate, it's Xavier Simeon of Belgium. Gate 2 alongside him, Carmelo Morales. Gate 3, Albert Arenas. Gate 4, Tony Elias. He's looked strong so far. Gate 5, Xavi Vierge, also of Spain. Gate 6, Fabio Di Gianantonio of Italy. Gate 7, Remy Gardner of Australia. And off the wide outside, it's Johan Zarco of France. The last chance qualifier, only just squeezed through to this stage and looking to capitalise. Remember, the riders are fighting for the podium in class. They're also fighting for a top 4 place to move through to the super final, where the overall winner for this Superprestigio dirt track will be decided. The riders picking up the revs and awaiting the gate dropping, and we are underway with the first of 3 races in the final stage. Straight to the outside line, Fabio Di Gianantonio with a super start. Good early ride from him. We've got a faller on the first 2 turns. That's Xavier Simeon, and Remy Gardner's got caught up with him, so those 2 riders have been ruled out of contention here. Meanwhile, Johan Zarco makes a lunge of a move down the inside of Carmelo Morales, sends the pack sprawling. Mixed up with that is Xavi Vierge as well. Morales has run wide on the top turn. Zarco passes him. Through up the inside comes Vierge as well. Zarco locking it up coming into turn number 1. He's been collected Morales comes back through, as does Vierge, and now Gardner has also bundled past, so that sends Johan Zarco right to the back of the field in final number 1. He was right in the mix, right in the middle of the pack, but it's the top 3 who've pulled away. Big gap starting to develop between them. It's Tony Elias who leads the way, Fabio Di Gianantonio in 2nd position, and Albert Arenas in 3rd, and it doesn't look like any of those positions are going to change, although Vierge is not too far behind Arenas for 3rd, 4th and 5th positions. Things starting to tighten up. The top 3 looking broadly settled here. Morales is still right in contention with Vierge, and this, remember, is over 4th position directly behind Albert Arenas. Extra laps granted in the final as we see a faller at the back there of that group. And that's going to leave Arenas and Vierge to fight it out now over P3. It's Morales who's dropped out of contention. As I was saying, extra laps in the grand final. Morales will feel a little bit disappointed about that, I would suspect, because he was in a good position after 6 laps. He's going to be right at the back after 8. As we come towards the checkered flag, then it's Elias who wins it. Di Gianantonio in 2nd, Arenas in 3rd, Xavi Vierge in 4th position. Then a long wait for the first of the fallers. 4 riders going down out of the 8-rider field in that one. It's Remy Gardner who picks up the pieces with 5th position, but 8 seconds behind the winner, and that's as a result of that fall in the early stages. Simeon picks it up for 6th place, Johan Zarco in 7th, and Carmelo Morales eventually completing the finishers for a single point, but 2 laps down, having fallen at the end there of lap number 6. A quite dramatic first final. Great racing going on, particularly for 4th position. The top 3 was settled down quite early on. Johan Zarco had 4th position, but he was collected by Xavi Vierge, and then up the inside of the pair of them went Morales. Morales closed in on the top 3, and just when he looked set to strike on Albert Arenas, that's when he went down and gave up that 4th position. So we now move on to the first final in the open category. The categories are going to switch from one to the other as we go through. Watch out for, off the inside start position, the number 18, Frank Serra. He's got the pole. Alongside him, the 2 Americans, Brian Baumann and JD Beach. Gate 4 is with Thomas Charrer, the Supermoto multi-time world champion. Gate number 5 with Oliver Brindley of Great Britain. Gate 6, Guillermo Cano of Spain. Gate 7 with the Spanish flat track champion, Ferran Cardus, the last chance qualifier. And the outside gate number 8 with Adrien Garin. The gates drop and we are away. Charrer has made the fastest start. He's there on the inside. He runs wide and runs out Cardus, who's stuck on the outside of a 4-rider pack. The front 4 have broken away. Cardus slotting between 2 riders, including Charrer, to move up into 2nd place. It's Beach who leads it then. Up into 2nd position, Ferran Cardus. Great job from gate number 7. Battle out at the back as Oliver Brindley wrestles with Frank Serra over the minor placings. Directly ahead of him, it's Brian Baumann on the number 14 bike. It's not been a good start to this race for him, but he manages to slot his way through now into 4th position at the expense of Guillermo Cano, and Oliver Brindley is trying to take advantage of that. Cano looks all out of shape. He's up on one wheel down the home straight. Brindley goes side by side, in fact connects with him around turns 1 and 2, and the pair may touch again into turn 3. Brindley backs out of it. He's going to try and square off turn 4. He can't do so. Cano's covered the line well. Brindley though has got a smoother run into 1 and 2 and gets up the inside off the 2nd bend, finally makes the move, and that's for P5. Oliver Brindley making the pass. He can't afford to leave himself exposed coming off the turns though. He's now got to chase down Brian Baumann, who makes a move on the inside of Thomas Charrer, so that's for 3rd position. Charrer dropping back into 4th place. So just as I was saying that Oliver Brindley had Baumann next in his sights, that target has changed. It's now Thomas Charrer, the movable target, in 4th position. Beach, Cardus and Baumann in the top 3 places look set to be the top scorers, but Oliver Brindley is reeling in Thomas Charrer. Is he just going to run out of time? We're into the final lap now. Brindley looking for as smooth an arc as possible on the final 2 turns. Thomas Charrer holding that 4th position and holds it to the line. Checkered flag for JD Beach, the American. Ferran Cardus over the line in 2nd place. A great ride from him, considering he came all the way from the gate 7 position. Made a good start, got shuffled up on the first 2 turns, but toughed it out with a great move into turn number 3, slotting between 2 riders. It's Beach who wins it. Cardus in 2nd, Baumann for 3rd and the 6 race points. Thomas Charrer holding on 4.45, but he didn't have the pace to live with the top three. Oliver Brindley recovering through well with a couple of passes for 5th position, and ahead of Cano, Serra and Garin. All 8 riders finishing within 6 seconds of one another there. So a really different first final in the open category compared to the Superprestigio class where we had 4 fallers. Good battling going on, particularly Oliver Brindley and Brian Baumann working their way through. Brindley cutting his way past Guillermo Cano there for 5th position, but left himself too much work to do to try and chase down the top 4 and had to be content with 5th position. Well, next up is the Superprestigio Challenge. This will settle positions 9 to 16 in the Palau Sant Jordi for this Superprestigio class. The lineup of gate number 2, Marcos Ramirez, no rider on the inside of him. Ruben Zaus is a non-starter for this one. Gate 3, Vincent Philippe of France. Gate 4, Jesco Raffin of Switzerland. Gate 5, David Checa of Spain. Gate 6, Fabio Quartararo of France. Gate 7, Dani Ribalta, and Lucas Mayas completes the lineup off the outside gate. Here we go then, 7 riders for the challenge, settling positions 9 to 15. Ruben Zaus will be consigned to 16th place. Great start from the Frenchman Quartararo. He's run wide though off turn number 2. Marcos Ramirez coming through. We've got a faller off the second turn. Is that Raffin who's gone down? It's Lucas Mayas trying to make progress from further down the field. He's now on the inside line, challenging for 2nd position. The Frenchman going toe to toe, almost literally there as they came off the second turn. The race leader is the number 42, Marcos Ramirez. Mayas has now come through to claim 2nd place. He's left a big hole up the inside that Vincent Philippe couldn't quite capitalise on to challenge for 3rd position. Vincent Philippe hasn't really had the pace, but he's been smooth enough in the early stages of this challenge. And it's Marcos Ramirez who holds top spot, but it's Lucas Mayas who seems to be closing in on him. This, remember, is for 9th position. Cursor the commentator, Mayas has gone down and he's collected Vincent Philippe. Through comes David Checa, and through as well comes Dani Ribalta, so that is a huge change in terms of this field. Ribalta coming through for 3rd position. Mayas having fallen right on the racing line, and Vincent Philippe was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Ribalta locking himself to the inside line on turn number 1. He looks fast enough to challenge now for 2nd position in this race, but is there enough time for him to do so? Time ticking away and laps ticking away as heading in deep there on turn number 1. Ribalta tries something different and it didn't work for him. He's dropped a good few bike lengths back actually around the pits bend, and Fabio Quartararo now looks to have 2nd place settled as they head into the final lap, but he's not going to get to Marcos Ramirez. Some consolation for the Spaniard. He rounds turns 3 and 4 for the final time and takes the checkered flag. Good ride from him there, the Moto3 rider, stepping into the Superprestigio class here today and finishes it in 9th position. 10th place will go to Fabio Quartararo after 2nd position there, less than a second behind the race winner. Dani Ribalta collecting 3rd place, but as a result of all sorts of dramas going on up ahead of him, and a fall for Lucas Mayas, who eventually is a non-finisher in that one, and he will therefore be classified in 15th position in this Superprestigio class overall. Here it is again, Lucas Mayas closing in on Marcos Ramirez. I thought we were set for a real duel for top spot, but he's overcooked it into turn 3 and down he goes, a retiree from that one, the Superprestigio Challenge. We remain with the Superprestigio class, but back to the top 8, and it's for the 2nd final. A reminder of how things stand after final number 1. It's Tony Elias who leads the way on 10, Fabio Di Gianantonio who sits 2nd on 8, Albert Arenas sits on 6, and Xavi Vierge on 5. Those are the riders who occupy the current provisional qualification positions towards the super final. They're also doing battle for podium positions in the Superprestigio class. Gate 1 is with Vierge. He's on the fringes of that qualification top 4. Gate number 2, Johan Zarco, just 2 points first time out. Gate 3, Remy Gardner, 4 points to his name. Gate number 4, Fabio Di Gianantonio, runner-up in race number 1. Tony Elias, the final one winner, goes off gate 5. Arenas Simeon completing the lineup with the absence of Carmelo Morales following his single point score and fall first time out. It's final number 2 in the Superprestigio category here in the Palau Sant Jordi. The gate drops and we are away. Not a good start from the very outside from the 110, cutting to the inside line, coming off turn number 2, Johan Zarco. Good move there. He saw the other riders sprawling for position. Alberto Arenas it is who's hit the front. The number 75 leading the way. We're side by side almost for 3rd and 4th positions. In fact, we are now because Elias left a bit of room coming off turn number 2. And Tony Elias has been overhauled by the number 97, Xavi Vierge. Vierge has left a lot of room on the inside for Fabio Di Gianantonio. Now Remy Gardner's bundling past and Elias recovering. So 3 places lost in 1 lap there for Xavi Vierge. What a disaster that was for him. Johan Zarco showing improved form in this one. He sits up in 2nd position. I was watching him as he moved in around turns 1 and 2, just clawing his way back to the inside off the 2nd turn. That was a good ride from Johan Zarco, but he's now dropping back in terms of pure pace. Next up to try and challenge him is Fabio Di Gianantonio for 2nd position, and Di Gianantonio in turn is under some pressure here from Remy Gardner, who currently occupies 4th position. Tony Elias trapped down in 5th place, and the winner of final number 1 further down the order. That's a bit of a surprise in this one. He almost rubs wheels with Gardner coming off turn 2 as Gardner does the same to Di Gianantonio up ahead of him. So things are mighty close in this 2nd final in the Superprestigio class, but it's Arenas who leads. We got a faller off the 2nd bend. Down goes Remy Gardner. He's going to slip to the back of the pack in 7th place. We're into the final lap now. He's the first to break. That means that Tony Elias moves up into 4th position. He's got a bit of a gap to try and recover to Fabio Di Gianantonio though, after that fall of the rider who sat in 4th position. And there are no changes on the final lap as we come to the checkered flag, with Alberto Arenas winning it and taking the 10 race points. That will also move him top of the provisional standings ahead of the 3rd and bonus point final. Alberto Arenas then leading the way overall after that race win, because Tony Elias, the winner in final number 1, could only manage 5 points and 4th position in final 2. That really does set us up nicely for the remaining final in the Superprestigio class. Frustration for Remy Gardner. He was in the mix there in that one, having scored 4 points first time out. He was looking good for a solid middle order finish once again, but he locks it up coming off turn 2. Tony Elias fortunate to avoid him. That then left Elias with too much ground to try and recover to make it up to the top 3, but he nonetheless remains 2nd in the point standings overall in the Superprestigio class after final 2. Back to the open class for their 2nd final. A reminder of the results of final 1. JD Beach was the race winner. He goes off gate 4 here, 10 points to his name. Frank Ardus directly on the inside of him off gate 3, finished runner-up first time out. Then it was Briar Baumann who starts off gate 5, so the favourites are in the middle starting positions here. Baumann has 6 points to his name, and Thomas Scherer took 4th position first time out. He goes off gate number 2. So the favourites and the top scorers from the first final in the middle of the grid here, if you like. On the outside of them, the number 18, Frank Serra, also Oliver Brindley and Guillermo Cano, all of whom have work to do if they want to make it through to the super final here tonight. Remember, only the top 4 from both the Open and Superprestigio categories can transfer. The only rider I didn't introduce, Adrien Garin, who finished at the back first time out. He goes off the pole, gate number 1. Riders settling in for this one then. As I said, the favourites from the middle starting positions, the highest point scorers in final number 1. Will we see change in final 2? Great start from Frank Serra, who's there first. In fact, it was such an incredible start. He had time to run wide, but he went too deep and he's dropped to 3rd position. Frank Ardus has come through up into 2nd place. He's now moved aside by JD Beach, who tries to hit the front at the end of the opening lap, and he's done so. And Briar Baumann bundles past as well, and Ardus is pushed aside and loses 3 or 4 places. He tries to lunge back through down the inside, gets the better of Oliver Brindley, also manages to overhaul Frank Serra and is now alongside Thomas Scherer and moves him out of the way as well. Brindley has also managed to pick off Serra, moving through now into 6th position. Brindley to the outside. He might try something a little bit different here on the tail of Adrien Garin of Spain. Oh, Brindley's connected. Brindley's collected rather by Guillermo Cano, who's also gone down. Cano though is back up to his feet swifter, and Oliver Brindley is about to be swallowed up by the pack here and drops off the lead lap. Real disappointment for Oliver Brindley, because that wasn't of his own making. He was eyeing up a move on Adrien Garin up ahead of him for 5th position, and he was just sideswiped, or rear swiped I should say, by Guillermo Cano, whose front wheel connected with his back. and down goes Oliver Brindley and into the minor placings. Racing continuing around him. At the moment, this is the battle for third position. Thomas Scherer is coming on strong midway through, coming on a bit too strong, connects with the back of Frank Cardus. Plenty of contact racing, I think we can call it, here this evening. Cardus holding on to that third position, but now Adrien Garin has overhauled Thomas Scherer, and Scherer's mistake, whilst being a little bit too eager trying to pass Frank Cardus, is going to cost him a place. He will end up in fifth position. It's 2 wins out of 2 for JD Beach this time, and it's American 1-2 with Brian Baumann coming through for second position. Frank Cardus gets third. He was an early race leader, but there was all sorts going on in the early laps, and it eventually shook down to the Americans hitting top spots. They're separated by less than half a second at the flag. Frank Cardus 1.5 seconds further back takes third position. He's still well and truly in the mix for a potential qualification position to the Super Final. The fourth qualifier from the Open class is far less predictable by the looks of things, because you've got Thomas Scherer with a good ride there, but losing out on a point. That could be costly for him. He moves on to 9, 2 consistent scores. Frustration for Guillermo Cano, but particularly for Oliver Brindley. Those two ending up at the back after those collisions, and they're now tied in the minor placings with Frank Serra a point behind Adrien Garin. The 4 riders in the provisional elimination positions. As things stand, they're set to miss out on a place in the Super Final. Still 1 race to go though in both the Superprestigio and Open finals. Before we proceed with the finals though, it's the Open Class Challenge. These challenge races being used to split up the action and give a bit of respite for the finalists, which I'm sure is much appreciated by them. This will decide positions 9 to 16 then in the Open Class. Of the inside gate, it's Jaume Gaia, alongside him Sergi Sanchez. Gate 3 is with Tom Neve. Gate 4, the 64 Sylvain Bidar. Gate 5, Gerard Bailo. Gate 6, Matías Lorenzato of Argentina. Francesco Ciccini and Jaume Gaia completing lineup off the very outside. Good start from the number 45. A lot of bunching though on the first 2 turns, and cutting back from 4th to 1st, it's Francesco Ciccini. The advantage of the outside start position gave him a good sweep coming off turn 2 to hit the front. Tom Neve managed to brave out that 3 abreast situation on the first 2 turns to come through for second position, and he's now moving into attack mode down the inside of Ciccini into turn number 3, and it is Tom Neve who hits the front. Great ride there from Tom Neve to lead the way. Second place is with Ciccini. Battles going on further down the order. Gerard Bailo trying to recover a top 3 position. He's in 4th position as things stand, but it's Tom Neve who's stretching his legs out in front and now has quite a significant advantage over Ciccini. Here is that battle for 3rd position. Gerard Bailo closing in all the time. It's Jaume Gaia Jr. directly up ahead of him. Bailo tries to run it in deeper on turn number 3 to see if he can get the cut back. Gaia's covered the inside line. Bailo will again go deeper and try and square off the turns. He's got plenty of pace here. The pair of them, in fact, are gaining on Francesco Ciccini. Under yellow flags on the top turn, so no opportunities to pass there. But now they're released back into turns 1 and 2, and through comes Bailo, picking off quite nicely Jaume Gaia to come through for 3rd position. And now he's going to have a go at Ciccini. Ciccini locked it up too much on the top bend. Through came Bailo, through as well comes Jaume Gaia, and Matías Lorenzato is going to have a go in the latter stages. He picks off Ciccini, coming off turn number 2, and in the space of a lap, the Italian has lost 3 places. We're into the final lap now for Tom Neve. He is well and truly clear, over 2 seconds up on his nearest rival. Well, they've all been scrapping for 2nd to 5th positions. Tom Neve has been clear of it all, and it is Great Britain's Tom Neve who takes the checkered flag. A long-awaited moment of cheer for DTRA fans as they see one of their former round winners, Tom Neve, taking the checkered flag. 2nd place over the line was Gerard Bailo. 3rd going the way of Jaume Gaia Jr. Well, we didn't have too many different race leaders in that one. We had a real scrap on our hands for 2nd all the way down to 6th positions, and eventually the early race leader, Francesco Ciccini, bullied all the way down to P6, and it's Tom Neve who was the first rider to come through. Nicely worked manoeuvre coming off the 2nd bend on Ciccini, who I thought had been covering the inside line quite well, but Neve went acute down the inside of the back straight, got his wheels in line, and it was something of an aggressive pass into turn 3, but one that worked well for Tom Neve. He takes 9th position overall in the Open category after victory in the Open Challenge. Now moving back to the finals, and this one is the decider in the Superprestigio class, which in particular is finely balanced. The top 3 riders separated by just 2 points. It's Alberto Arenas who lines up off the pole, who currently leads them. He sits on 16. Tony Elias just 1 point behind him on 15. Fabio Di Gianantonio just 2 points behind him on 14. And Johan Zarco occupying the last of the provisional qualification positions through to the super final. He sits on 10. We've got the top 4 moving through to the super final. We've got the fight for the positions on the podium and the honour of winning in the Superprestigio class as well. Arenas leads coming into this one, but 16 points are on offer for victory in this race, and 16 is the total that Arenas sits on coming into this one, so nothing is decided as yet, neither the top 4 nor the overall winner in terms of the Superprestigio category. We are building up to the 3rd and deciding final in the Superprestigio class here in the Palau Sant. Jordi. The riders waiting for the gate to drop, and we are underway with the decider. Great start from the 87. Remy Gardner is first away. 3 riders connecting the run down to the first turn. It's Xavier Simeon who's gone down. The Belgian falling. He went in deep into turn number 1. Oh, and we've got another faller on the top turn, and it's the points leader. Alberto Arenas, trapped between 2 riders there into turn 3, has gone down. He remounts, as did Simeon in the early stages, and we had 2 fallers on the opening lap, but it's the fall of Alberto Arenas that will surely be more significant in terms of the points. Here are the race leaders about to come across Xavier Simeon. Now he's got to ride his own race, of course, but he sits in 6th position. He's about to go a lap down, and at the moment he looks to be holding up Remy Gardner ever so slightly. Tony Elias sits directly behind him. Elias in a great position at the moment because Remy Gardner, remember, was 10 points behind the points leaders coming into final number 3, and Elias may well be able to finish in 2nd position in this final and win the Superprestigio category. I'm sure he'd like to do it with an overall win, as we see Simeon just moving out of the way of the leaders' battle. He can now rejoin his own race, but he's allowed the top 3 to pass, so full credit to him eventually for realising that the leaders were directly behind him. Extra laps in the 3rd final with 14 lap races as opposed to 8 that we had in the first 2 finals, so there are plenty of opportunities for a rider to prize away past or even to recover lost ground. And talking about prizing away past, Tony Elias certainly gave it a good go there coming around turns 3 and 4. He's sending moves in pretty deep up against Remy Gardner, but Gardner has held firm and well as well. Xavi Vierge sitting in 3rd position directly behind this top 2 at the moment. He looks for a move coming off turn number 2. Elias has got to be careful that chasing after the race leader he doesn't expose himself to attacks from behind, but it's Alberto Arenas and Fabio Di Gianantonio who were Elias's closest points rivals coming into this one, and they are down the order in 4th and 5th positions, so the fight up front may well see Elias crowned champion here in the Superprestigio class. He is still under pressure from 3rd place, and Xavi Vierge looks ever closer to that 2nd position. If Vierge could move through, that would give him 14 points, but it still wouldn't be enough for him to beat Tony Elias. Elias only needs that 2-point advantage over Alberto Arenas to overhaul him in the standings, and Arenas after that fall early on is stranded down the order. Di Gianantonio can't capitalise, surely, by being in the mix with riders who were stranded down the order in terms of the point standings in this one. Up in 2nd position, Tony Elias can play the percentage game, come home for 2nd position and take victory. We're into the final lap. This would be enough for Tony Elias. 2nd position behind Remy Gardner. Turns 3 and 4 for the final time. Elias will delight the home crowd. We have a Spanish winner in the Superprestigio category. Remy Gardner's delighted with his race win in final number 3, but the overall points winner will be Tony Elias, the most consistent in the Superprestigio class over the 3 races. He had 15 points going into that one. He banks 14 points with a 2nd position finish and finishes on 29. Fabio Di Gianantonio and Alberto Arenas finish on 24 points apiece. Arenas, after that fall in the early stages, that was crippling misfortune for him on turn number 3. And we had another fall, of course, in the run down to the first turn. Xavier Simeon going down on the inside line. He'd taken gate number 2 and went in deep and a little bit too deep and connected with the side of Remy Gardner. It didn't stop Gardner from hitting the front, but it did shuffle the pack up, allowed Elias through to second place, and that was absolutely crucial for him. And then equally crucial was that move down into turn number 3 that saw the number 75 trapped out, Alberto Arenas going down, and that enabled Elias to ride with some comfort in the end to take the overall victory in the Superprestigio class. Final number 3 in the open category. It's Briar Baumann who goes off the inside start position, gate number 1. He has 14 points to his name, currently tied with Frank Cardus in second position. Gate 2 alongside him is JD Beach. He's the man to beat, 6 points clear. It's going to be tough. JD Beach, as long as he finishes here in the top 2 positions, will be guaranteed victory in the open category. Gate number 3 is with Oliver Brindley. He's on 5. He's one of 3 riders on 5 points at the bottom of the standings. Adrien Guerin on 6, and the last of the provisional qualification positions is occupied by Thomas Scherer, who starts just on the outside of Oliver Brindley here, the number 4, and 4 points to make up for those 3 riders who sit on 5. So it's not inconceivable that one of the riders at the bottom of the pile coming into this race could qualify through to the super final. But in terms of open class victory, JD Beach can finish in either of the top 2 positions and seal the crown. 4 will march on. At the moment, Beach, Baumann and Cardus look relatively safe, but who could be a 4th qualifier alongside them? The gate drops and we're about to find out. Scherer with a sensational start, but not quite good enough to get to the first turn first, and he's gone down. Down goes Thomas Scherer. The early race leader, Frank Serra, starting to slip backwards now. He went wide off turn 2. The 2 Americans have passed him. Guillermo Cano passes him as well. Oliver Brindley tries to do so into turn number 1. Instead, he's going to do it off turn 2. Not quite. The number 18 manages to clamp across the front of him, and now Frank Cardus from a way back dives down the inside of Brindley, moves him out of the way, sends him to the back. Adrien Guerin coming through as well. Serra's lost a position to Cardus. He's going to lose another to Guerin, I suspect, around turns 3 and 4. He's gone a little bit deep off turn 4. Guerin locks it up though and can't quite get there. So at the moment, those 2 riders holding station and holding up Oliver Brindley as well. Brindley looking to the outside line, coming off the second bend. He now cuts to the inside around turn number 3. Guerin is trying to pass Frank Serra. This is all over 5th, 6th and 7th places at the moment after we lost Thomas Scherer to a fall in the early stages, of course. Brindley stuck at the back of that pack at the moment in P7. The race leaders are bursting away. JD Beach is going to take the checkered flag in this one. Oh, Brindley with a nasty collision. He's run straight up the back of Adrien Guerin coming off turn number 2, and surely that's a retirement from final number 3 for Oliver Brindley. It certainly ends his hopes of progression through to the super final. We'll see JD Beach and Briar Baumann marching on. They sit in the top 2 positions in final number 3. They held the top 2 positions coming into this race as well. Frank Cardus will take a place on the open podium with 4th position in this race as things stand. That will be enough for him to take the 3rd step on the podium. Cano isn't close to him in terms of the point standings overall. He was one of those 3 riders who came into this race on 5 points, but even if he gets passed here by Frank Cardus, if Cano stays in 4th position, he will qualify through to the super final. Cardus is lining him up for a move. Cano will hope that if he does get through, he does so with the minimal fuss and without creating opportunities for the riders directly behind them. Frank Serra at the moment is the closest to them, but he's the length of half a straight back from them at the moment. This is the fight for 3rd position. It's Guillermo Cano who holds it. Frank Cardus looking for a way through. He's going to look for that way through off turn number 4. Not quite this lap around. Again, he has to hold station in 4th position. This battle is absolutely meaningless for Frank Cardus, to be completely honest. He's going to finish in 3rd place in the open class. He's going to finish in 3rd place in final number 3, I suspect as well now, as he makes the pass on Guillermo Cano eventually. But he is a full straight behind JD Beach, who comes around the top turn to head into the final lap. And he's going to do it with 3 successive victories. JD Beach has been the class of the field. He's come good when it mattered the most in the final stages in this open category. And it's an American 1-2 for a 2nd race in succession that sees JD Beach and Briar Baumann top the scorers in the open category. Frank Cardus home in 3rd. So final number 3 ends up replicating the top 4 positions in the standings overall in the open class. Disappointment for Oliver Brindley as he makes his way back to the paddock, supported by the Brits who've had a tough evening, to be completely honest, here in the Palau Sant, Jordi. It's Beach, Baumann, Cardus and Cano who march on to the super final. Frank Serra and Thomas Scherer, after his fall, will be eliminated by just 2 points. Adrien Garin missing out by 3 points, and Oliver Brindley, after his fall, cost himself the opportunity. He was just edging to get past the two Spaniards who were directly ahead of him. He was being held back by Adrien Garin, and Garin locks it up coming off turn 2. Brindley straight into the back of him, and both of those riders end up being eliminated, missing out on an opportunity in the super final, where we'll see the top 4 performers from the Superprestigio class join the top 4 from the open category. And it's Spain versus the USA once again for bragging rights here in the Palau Sant, Jordi. The 25th and final race of the night is the super final. The first time that riders from the Open and Superprestigio categories have met, with one shot at overall victory in this 5th edition of the Superprestigio dirt track. The 8 riders lining up here are the top 4 from each final group, and they will do battle over 16 laps, the longest of any race here tonight. A look at the lineup then, from inside to out. On pole position, gate number 1, the number 24, Tony Elias, one of 4 Spanish riders to have made it through, the overall winner in the Superprestigio category and winner of final number 1. Gate 2, the number 95, JD Beach of the USA, the pre-race favourite, unbeaten in the Open finals, 4 wins on the bounce coming into this one. Gate 3, the number 75, another of the Catalan contingent, Alberto Renas, winner of final number 2. Gate 4 is with the number 21, Fabio Di Gianantonio, 3rd of the Superprestigio qualifiers. Gate 5, the number 1, Ferran Cardus, 2-time Spanish flat track champion, one of 2 riders here to have made it through the hard way via the last chance qualifier. On gate 6, the number 14, Brian Baumann, who'll need the start of his life to make it from all the way out there. Won't want to finish runner-up to his fellow countryman JD Beach, as he did remember in the Open finals. The lowest scoring qualifiers are the outsiders, quite literally. The number 87, Remy Gardner on gate 7, and the 179, Guillermo Cano off the outside. A new winner guaranteed in 2017 for the 5th edition of the Superprestigio dirt track. It's Ferran Cardus who takes the whole shot. He runs wide on turns 1 and 2. Brian Baumann connects with him and the pair go backwards. It's Tony Elias who takes the lead. Out at the back, Gardner going down and taking Cano with him. Those two ruling themselves out of contention on the opening lap. But it's Elias who leads ahead of JD Beach in 2nd. Ferran Cardus having dropped to 3rd place, and Brian Baumann down to 5th. Now lunges for a move down the inside to make the pass on Fabio Di Gianantonio for 4th position. The closest race is now up front, where JD Beach is rubbing alongside Tony Elias. Coming around turns 1 and 2, he runs deeper into bend 3. He's going to look for the cutback off 4, moves Elias out of the way, and Elias is going to drop 2 positions here, because bundling through down the inside line, Ferran Cardus saw a gap and took advantage of it. So it's JD Beach now leading ahead of Ferran Cardus in 2nd place, dropping to 3rd position Tony Elias, and into the path now of Brian Baumann, who's working his way back through the field, having got it all wrong on the first 2 turns. Beach looking comfortable, his fellow countryman out in front. A 2nd now clear of Brian Baumann in 4th position, just a 2nd covering this top 4. The next race you suspect is going to be Baumann going after Elias. He's closed in on this leading group. As I said, just a 2nd covering the 4 of them. Less than a 10th of a second though, covering 3rd and 4th positions. Baumann looking in slightly wider around turns 1 and 2. Elias is doing a great job of hugging the white line on the inside, and Baumann's going to have to think of something special here. Elias is the smoother of the pair of them. Baumann certainly faster, but how is he going to find a way through? The race leader's pulling away while Baumann does battle, and he makes a lunge down the inside into turn 3. Perfect block pass. Elias shaking his head, didn't like that move, but Baumann couldn't afford to drop any more time, slipping away from the top 2 whilst being held at bay by Tony Elias in 3rd position. Now he's got a bit of a margin to cover, but he's got clear air up ahead of him, because Ferran Cardus is well clear and starting to close on JD Beach, the race leader, about to approach lap traffic for the first time. Remy Gardner pulls out of the way quite easily, enabling JD Beach to pull through. It's Cardus in 2nd, remember, and 3rd place Brian Baumann starting to close on the pair of them. But has he got time enough to try and stake his claim for victory in this 5th edition of the Superprestigio? 5 laps remaining, 4/10 of a second between the top 2. Beach ahead of Cardus, and Brian Baumann about the same distance now from 2nd place man Ferran Cardus. The top 3 separated by 8/10 of a second as we head into the closing 4 laps. JD Beach in front for Ancardus, starting to slip back ever so slightly, unable to make any further impression since a really strong lap earlier on that enabled him to close to 0.4 of a second on JD Beach. He's dropped back slightly on that last lap around, 3 laps remaining. Baumann closing in on Cardus, the battle for second position. The number 14 versus the number 1. Baumann gaining ground there on the top turn. Cardus, does he know enough to hold on against the American contingent here? He's not going to get to JD Beach, who's now the length of a straight ahead of second and third positions. Looking to the inside again, coming off turn number 4, Brian Baumann. White flag shows 1 lap remaining. Cardus has got the inside line, but he's left a bit of a gap, and Baumann forces his way through. Cardus locks it up, shaking his head. There's a bit of commonality here. The Spaniard's not enjoying the way Brian Baumann has pushed his way through, but it's Baumann who takes second position on the closing lap from Ferran Cardus, who still holds on for a podium place, and it's JD Beach who takes the checkered flag and becomes only the 3rd different winner in the Superprestigio. Congratulations all round, and JD Beach will now come round with his fellow countrymen on a lap of honour. We were guaranteed a new winner in 2017, and it's JD Beach who adds his name to the roll of honour, and he's clearly delighted with that. It was hard work for Brian Baumann to force his way through the field, but he did a great job and makes it an American 1-2. So in the latest battle between Spain and the USA, it's certainly the Americans who come out on top, and in emphatic style. It was Tony Elias who held the lead in the early stages. In fact, his fellow countryman Ferran Cardus who took the whole shot, but the American riders both swift in making overtaking manoeuvres, finding their way through for the top 2 positions. The rumour mill ahead of this event suggests this is the last here at the Palau Sant Jordi before a move to new pastures next year, and if that does indeed prove to be the case, then what a way to bow out.